Good morning, everyone. It is 8 a.m., 8:30 a.m., and I would like to call the meeting of the Economic Development Committee to order. May I please have a roll call?
Yes, Chair LaFont,
Here.
Vice Chair Galassi, Member Rutledge, Member Covert,
Here.
Member Childress,
Here.
and Member Yu.
Here. Wonderful. We do have Member Rutledge zooming in. So let's see, a physical quorum of the members is physically present. I will entertain a motion to permit those members not physically present due to personal illness to participate by video or teleconference. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Wonderful. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This motion carries. Welcome, Member Rutledge.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Today, we are going to have a presentation by Lisa Shavat and from working at DuPage. Very excited to hear everything that she has to say. Always good information. I'd also like to bring up something that Member Yu brought to my attention. It is about the Technology Center of DuPage. The TCD is having an open house on September 19th. That's this Thursday from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And everyone here on the Economic Development Committee is invited. We can share this information. And Amy, would you please, I will forward you the information. If you could please send it out to the committee, that would be great. So if you have any questions about it, Member Yu is the person to talk to. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Do we have any public comments today?
We do not.
Okay, wonderful. I move to approve the minutes from our last meeting. Item is 24-2515 Economic Development Committee regular meeting minutes. Okay.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Item 6A, 24-2501, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Chamber 630 to provide one-stop operator services for the Workforce Development Division for the period of October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2025, for a total contract amount not to exceed $20,000 per RFP number 24-53 WIOA. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that motion also carries. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
Take it away.
Good morning, I'm Lisa Shavat. I think you all know
Mhm.
that. What I'm going to do today is give you the program year 23 summary. So our grant year, if you want to advance to the first slide, our grant year, as you likely recall, runs July 1 through June 30. So on June 30th, we concluded program year 23. That grant year, our total allocation, again, these are federal funds through Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. The total was $5.151 million. As a reminder, we are required by the state to expend at least 50% of that allocation on things that are considered direct training. So those are dollars that are going directly to job seekers, to businesses, or other activities that constitute direct training. Notably, a lot of the work that we do does not count as direct training, even though arguably it should, such as, training people how to job search effectively, which is oftentimes the key thing to getting people back into the workforce. But those funds don't count. So why I bring this up is it's one of the big tricks with managing the WIOA budget, in that your personnel costs, as they kind of escalate over time, or other kinds of overhead costs, can make it tricky to hit or exceed that 50%. Historically, we've done really well on this. This past program year, we were at, I think, like 58.4%. Many areas in the state struggle with this, so just putting that on your radar. The other stipulation with our grant budget is that we have to obligate or expend at least 80% by the end of the first year of the program. So that was June 30th, 2024. We can carry over a maximum of 20%. We carried over a decent amount this year, but this time of year is always a nail biter for me because, as you likely know, in DC, they are again talking about a potential budget impasse. And the way that they give us our funds is they give us one batch first, advance funds, and it's like 1 quarter So as of October 1, that's when the state receives all of the rest of the funds that get passed through to us. If for some reason they have a holdup, we will be relying on the carryover from program year 23 to sustain us until they resolve that. So it's fun. It's tricky managing the budget. There's a lot of rules and stipulations on it, as you guys know. What I included here on the first slide were career center check-ins for the program year. So as you can see, there were over 2,000 people that came for in-person appointments. That does not include any virtual or in the community appointments, obviously. Our counselors through the county were the bulk of those at over 1,700. And then our partner staff, who the one-stop operator that you just approved the contract for, kind of oversees and coordinates those efforts. They met with 420 people at the center. Workshops are wildly popular and successful and kind of ever increasing. We're adding new wrinkles to that all the time. We had over 2,000 people check in for those types of events. Non-job seeker events includes things like we host a Ray Graham employment group regularly, the West Suburban Jobs Council. There's a lot of other usages of the center beyond kind of job seeker oriented activities. That was 351 for the year. And then you can see other job seeker services at the center, over 3,000 people. So a lot of activity. In the post-COVID era, we've really intentionally tried to kind of reinvigorate the in-person programming, and it's been so well received, as many of you have seen when you've come to the center. So I wanted to note that here. Next slide, please. Oh, and I included some photos of some of those events. So we do things like the career conversation, quarterly career conversation and hiring event. You can see actually we had the county out for this one that was in May. A couple of our county staff are there on the right. As well as a number of other employers, Eaton, Abrasive Form, Edward Don, Now Foods. The next slide shows a concept that our team came up with called Let's Talk Job Search. That's kind of like I hate to use the term support group, but it's sort of what it is. It's a big discussion group. They have allowed the group, and as you can see, a lot of people attend these events. That's probably about 50 or so people at that session there. They have allowed the group to kind of dictate what the topics are, and then they provide either the presentations themselves or they get outside speakers. Last year, as an example, we had Andrew Fox, who's the general counsel for the Illinois Department of Labor, come out. A number of kind of creative topics. That's been really successful and popular. And then the next slide shows a couple of our own Economic Development Committee members there. Last year's first round of back to school, back to work, which, as you know, we are in the middle of round 2. This year, we had a great kickoff last week, and the second session will be taking place this Thursday, and then the final will be next Thursday. So those are all kind of the services that we provide either to the general public through the center, you know, and obviously we do stuff out in the community as well. On the next slide here, you'll see the total number of what I call here full WIOA participants for the year. So those are people that actually received funding, that are enrolled in the actual WIOA program, that are part of what we call long-term services, because they have a career counselor that they're in touch with on a monthly basis at least. Oftentimes people are enrolled for a period of like a year or longer. Yesterday, I was talking to one of our counselors who her participant just finished her training program after a number of setbacks, who was enrolled in 2018. So these are long-term sometimes. They're not supposed to be that long-term. That was an outlier. I see your face, I agree. But most of these people received funding for training. 1D again means dislocated workers. So those are people that were laid off from their jobs. That number was always historically the highest number that we had, but for the past several years has been lower than our A. A are people who are people who are either income eligible or they're eligible because they have a basic skills deficiency of some sort. So typically they have more barriers to employment, and we're seeing lots and lots of people that are qualifying for that grant. And then our young adults, 18 to 24, we had 180 people served. A segment of those are with our subcontracted programs like Parents Alliance, World Relief, Turning Point. So that gives you an idea of total participants for program year 23. Next slide. So who we served, we track the race and ethnicity of those participants. So this was the breakdown for those numbers that you just saw there. I'll let you take a look at those percentages. And then on the next slide, this is how that looks year over year from the prior program year to program year 23. So as you can see, for individuals that identified as white, we saw a 10% decrease this past year, and all of the other groups increased. Individuals identifying as Asian, increase of 3%, identifying as Black, an increase of 6%. We actually had an increase of American Indian, Alaskan Native, which we rarely see, but that increased as well. And then Hispanic Latino, a 4% increase. We attribute this to a lot of the targeted outreach that we've been doing, a lot of accessibility improvements for not only language, but sort of other elements of our programming that maybe makes it easier to access services. And so, we're happy to see that. On the right side there, you can see the average wage at employment, which is the point when we typically close a file. And you can see those figures there. They're all in excess of what our target range kind of is, which is like 22 to 25 for DuPage County. Notably, the Hispanic Latino population is the lowest on there. And we believe that that's due to language accessibility. So that is something that we're consistently looking to address with employers as well. On the next slide, you'll see the gender at birth breakdown. It's very lopsided again, although females this year increased by 3% from last year. But we continue to see a lot more male participants. And at first I was thinking that that was due to a post-COVID environment where women were maybe more likely to step back from the workforce because they had kids doing school at home and all of that. At this point now, we know that women are back in the workforce at pre-pandemic levels. And we actually know that men are having higher unemployment typically. So I think that this might be more of a reflection of just the reality that there are more men that are struggling to land successful careers or they're experiencing more unemployment. I always like to look at the male-female wages because for those of you who remember my Breaking Boundaries initiative with the non-traditional occupations, the traditionally female occupations always pay significantly less than those that are considered traditionally male. Interesting to note that the youth and the dislocated workers are really pretty close for males and females, but our 1A, and again, those are a lot of low-income qualified folks there, females are lagging behind. And I think that that is once again due to those occupations that they tend to be interested in and select. They pay less than the high advanced manufacturing, truck driving, HVAC, IT. A lot of women that we see come in want healthcare, and to break into that field, those wages usually at the beginning are a little bit lower. So that I think explains that discrepancy there.
Any ideas of how we can change that?
Well, I thought that with increased awareness on the issue that it would help. Like, oh, I could become an electrician, but it's a difficult one because a lot of it just comes down to interest, and women tend to gravitate towards occupations. We know, for example, we have an early childhood education need. We need more people to work in daycares, and the pay is really low. So, it makes it difficult for a woman to take care of her family on the income of the types of careers that she's interested in. There's a historical element to it. They call it the feminization of poverty, that these jobs, historically were paid less because that's what the women
Undervalued.
do, and it's undervalued type of work. So I think that it's a more systematic issue than just simply making awareness to all of these other great jobs. But yeah, for what we do, we try to just make sure that we're having people do enough career exploration on the front end to really look at those wages. And then you don't want to deter people from studying patient care tech or things like that to break into the nursing track or into the healthcare field, because we need people there too, but the payoff kind of comes later for them.
Thank you for drawing attention to it.
Yeah,
Please keep doing that.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, but yeah, we do the best we can with that awareness piece. On the next slide, you'll see a number of populations that are really important in the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. The writing's kind of small, but I can still read it from afar here, surprisingly. I didn't think I was going to be able to. So individuals with a documented disability, you see we had an 8% increase over last program year. Older workers, 55 plus, a 2% increase, low income qualified, 4% increase, SNAP recipients, an increase, all of the categories here, an increase. So we continue to be successful at connecting with people that have additional barriers to employment, arguably people that need the assistance the most. We're serving them in higher and higher numbers. The justice involved individuals, that's been an ongoing internal strategic goal of ours. We have staff that go into the DuPage County Jail regularly to provide services in the jail, and then connect with those folks when they get released back out into our community. And then the bottom two there are reflective of a lot of our work with World Relief, as well as a lot of our language accessibility initiatives that we've had to make it easier for people to connect and use our services, even if English is their second language. So it's good to see those increases. And on the next slide, you'll see what their wages are at the point of exit. So again, the efficacy of this type of programming, those are all, again, pretty much above that level that we look for, which is 22 to 25 roughly an hour. And you can see the bottom two there, cultural barriers and English language learners, just amazing wage returns on that. A lot of the reason why I believe those are so high this year is because many of the Ukrainian individuals that we have served have elected to go into CDL training programs, and they get truck driving jobs and they're making like $80,000 a year right out of the gate. So that's a big part of why those numbers are so high. But even individuals with misdemeanors or with felony convictions, those are good wages, post-employment. And we also work with businesses to try to make that connection and make it easier for them to land. Next slide. So what are we developing workers for? These are the key industry sectors for our regional and local economy. So you could see that the dollars that we get through WIOA are going to support those key industries of transportation, distribution, logistics. That's our top for this year. It was last year as well. Healthcare coming in there at $550,000 worth of training vouchers issued for that industry sector. IT business management and analysis, that always used to sit on the top of the heap, and that has been decreasing year over year. We expended over $462,000 towards training in that arena. Manufacturing and trades, and then you see other professional there on the bottom. It's kind of our catch-all category. For the top, for TDL, it's primarily truck driving licenses. It's still hugely popular throughout, I think, the country, because there are still so many jobs and they pay so well. It's like a 6-week ticket to like a really, really solid income. So it's the closest thing to like a silver bullet that I've ever seen with workforce development. We've literally had people that were homeless coming into us that trained in CDL and like massive income afterward. So that continues to trend. I don't know when that's going to plummet. At some point that will, start to drop, but right now it's still going strong. Healthcare, we primarily train, like I said, kind of those either entry level or LPN level nurses. We do also help some individuals complete their RN training programs. And then there's other things that College of DuPage offers, ultrasound and x-ray and all medical assistant, those types. IT and business management is a whole bucket of things like Scrum and different programming languages and business analysis programs. Manufacturing and trades is HVAC, as well as advanced manufacturing and automotive. And then you can see there at the bottom, administrative, HR, graphic design. These are all programs that when an individual comes into us, they can identify that as an employment goal, and then we work with them for their training plan and fund the training for them. Next slide. So where we're heading from here, unemployment rates, interestingly, are up by 1.7% from July. The most recent data is July. From July of last year, it's up 1.7% for DuPage County. We're at 5.3. That is still one of the lower in the state because the state is at 6.2. And Illinois has one of the highest in the nation as far as unemployment rates. There's only 3 states that are basically tied with us or higher, being DC, Nevada, and California. So Illinois is lagging for some reason with the unemployment rate. The rest of the nation seems to be lower. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but in DuPage County, we've seen an uptick. but it's still trending below where the state is at. Next slide shows you that in a little bit more detail. This is kind of busy, but the total labor force on the left there, this is for DuPage County only. You could see that we have really, we're really significantly higher at this point than we were in 22 and 23. So that's great to see. That tells us that more people are coming back and re-entering the workforce in general. And then the unemployment rates, we are the orange line there. US is the green line. So those kind of more mirror each other. The state of Illinois, as I said, is kind of elevated for the past couple of years. But you could see there for May and July, DuPage County has ticked up significantly. So it's hard to say, it's a small sample size at this point, but it is possible that that is a result of, on the left, the higher labor force. As more people are looking to re-enter the labor force, they start getting counted in as unemployed, where if they're just completely not looking for work, they don't get factored in. So that could be a possible explanation. We'll continue to monitor that. Next slide. These are Greg and my favorite slides. He's quite familiar with these because we talk about this quite a bit. So in summary here, what you're going to see on this slide and the next are that for LWIA 6, which is DuPage County, these are employment by industry. So the orange is 2024. You can see construction is up. It's higher than it was previously. Transportation, again, as we were just talking about with all those hot jobs with trucking and that is way up. That's the highest that it's basically been. Manufacturing, the highest that it's been in DuPage County. Then we see information employment, the lowest it's been. On the next slide, we see financial activities, the lowest it's been. Professional and business services, the lowest it's been. So what that tells us is what Greg and I have been watching happen over a number of years here, that the economy in DuPage County is changing. That what we were historically known for, not that it's not there at all, but you know, the corporate headquarters and the financial services and the IT and all that, that is starting to kind of decrease. And those more like hands-on type of occupations, transportation, distribution, manufacturing, construction, those are where all the job growth is happening. And so it's been really interesting having done this for a long time. We can see that change. Some of it has to do potentially with remote work. Those are jobs where firms can, you know, be having people work remotely and all of that, but it's really, it's a really obvious trend when you look at these grids from how it used to be, say 10 years ago. These would have looked, I think, significantly different at that point in time. I think, is that my last slide? That is my last slide. So other things that we have going on is really more of the same as far as the career services programming. Like I said, we're running back to school, back to work right now. We're still going, you know, status quo with all of the funding. We still are seeing a large amount of people come to us for services, so no changes there. I'd be happy to take any questions anybody has.
So I was pausing my questions, but there was your slide that you showed all the numbers of people that were taking advantage of your programs. It was like one of the first or second slides. Do you have data on like what percentage of those were employed after they used your services, or were they all employed? I wasn't sure if they were just people that you were counting that took advantage of your services or were also employed after they were completed.
So those full WIOA participants?
Yes.
We do, because those are the people that actually like count towards our performance metrics. I didn't bring our performance outcomes with us, and they're still a little bit in flux because the way that the time frame for when we have to exit files, we're still sort of exiting people that will count towards that.
Okay.
But I can tell you, I don't want to speak to it because I don't want to misspeak, but let me get back. I can send that information to the committee about the outcome information.
Okay, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
And then secondly, I've been very involved with the Just DuPage program, and I'm glad that you guys are as well. I'm just curious, do you have a database of companies that will hire the justice involved people in their program, or not necessarily just in their program, but I just feel like if there was like what we talked about with the, you know, the moms who potentially need a flexible schedule, like if we had a database of that, it would also be super helpful for the people coming out of the the justice involved individuals.
Yeah.
If they knew, like, yes, these companies specifically are willing to hire.
Yes, so couple things on that. There's an organization called Honest Jobs that we sort of partner with. They're a national organization that was actually founded by an individual who was justice involved. They do that. So they have this like entire system of employers. Locally here, Ron Schlager, who I think many of you probably have met, who's our business service manager, he goes out and does outreach to companies. And that's always one of the things that he touches on to find out if, their comfort level, do they do this? Do they know, do they need information on why it's a good idea, et cetera. So we keep in our like customer relationship management system, we keep track of that.
Okay.
What he would say is that a lot of times when you go out to an employer, sometimes they say publicly like, oh, we hire, and then when you go out privately, there's more hesitancy there. So it's a lot of overcoming hesitancy when you're
Sure.
doing that type of relationship management. One example, they have a small engine repair program that goes on inside the jail through College of DuPage, I believe is doing the training for that. So Ron went out and developed relationships with like 3 or 4 companies that would be willing to take those students when they come out. So as soon as they're released, we know who to call upon and try to connect them with. So we don't have a database that the customers themselves can access. We direct them to Honest Jobs.
Okay.
But we do kind of the more in-person connecting, hey, I have somebody, he's a great guy, we've been working with them, give him an interview type of placement.
Okay, wonderful.
Any other questions? I just have one question about one of the slides where you're showing the hourly wages. And I had just read that basically now what's considered a living wage is $27 to $28 an hour. And that's where all of them were.
Yeah, and in DuPage County, some people would say, or even some online tools that you can use, like cost of living indicators and things, it's even higher than that. I've
Sure.
had that conversation with Mary Keating
Mhm.
before, like what actually is the living wage. Yes, it, maybe is even higher than that in
I would
DuPage,
imagine, yeah.
but I think it's a pretty darn good start, at least to get people started on a career or that. So those wages are high too, because wages have gone up in general.
Right.
But yes, I think
It's
that
good to see at least that.
we're hitting the mark. We always are going to strive for better.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that even those kind of target populations that you see, those are pretty good figures.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
I
much
hope
for
I
the presentation.
wasn't too wonky with those slides, but
Love it.
data's data, right?
We love it. Yeah, we
All
love
right,
a deep
thank you.
dive. Thank you so much. Do we have any old business? No? Any new business? Oh, sorry.
Well, I don't know if it's old or new, but I just wanted to kind of pile on to the announcement that you made
Mhm.
about the TCD open house. Remember you and I toured a few Fridays ago
Mhm.
and kind of coupling with where the job trends are going. I wasn't even aware that all the different services that they provided. It is a tremendous asset to the county, and I would encourage everyone to go visit to learn about what all the different offerings they have, because it's really tremendous. So
Thank
just
you
wanted to
so
add that.
much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any new business? Seeing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.